Hello, you lovely lot. You all right?
Yeah.
Good. Welcome, all of you, to the Purpose Party. You are in for a very special evening. So my name is Jo Lightfoot, also known as the Human Battery Charger, and I am plugging in this evening as your MC, okay? So I just want to set the scene a little bit, because when Amy was choosing who would be appropriate for this role, the one explicit thing she said was, I need somebody who is dependable. That's what she said, someone who is dependable. I'm not entirely sure she understood her own assignment. So despite being just over 8 months pregnant and having waddled all the way from Bristol, I'm here. You can relax, unless I'm actually just going to do a little bit of a check. Is there anyone in the room who happens to be a midwife, has medical knowledge, even if you did a first aid course? Does that apply to anybody? Okay, lady at the back, yeah, you, right.
I've got 4 kids as well.
You've got 4 kids. Right, okay, so everyone else can relax. My love, you can't, you're on standby, okay? Brilliant, love it, great. So we don't want any eruptions, so we're hoping we're going to get through this without any of that. Tonight is a very special evening. And the reason it's so special is because a certain special lady named Amy Rowlinson has created something magical. Would you agree?
Yes.
It's the reason we're all here this evening. But here's the thing about magic. It doesn't happen overnight. And as Amy's friend, fellow podcaster, property investor, coach, professional speaker and accountability partner, I have had the privilege of witnessing that magic come to life over many years since our paths first crossed back in 2016. So I'm going to take you back to 2020. I mean, that was a pretty momentous year, wasn't it, 2020? Anyone recall why? What happened? Well, no, not the pandemic. Amy asked me to be her accountability partner. It was freaking huge. It blew COVID out the water. I was terrified. Because if anyone knows Amy, Amy is a very detailed person, and Amy documents everything. And she doesn't just document everything, she documents it really, really well. So I was feeling a huge amount of pressure to be a good enough accountability partner for her. But nonetheless, we started in early 2021. We started meeting weekly on Zoom. And then that more latterly became bi-weekly. And we would just take an hour each way, supporting each other in our business growth. And it was a very, very special time, especially over COVID, as you can imagine. Now, the logic to this was that Amy and I had decided, being coaches ourselves and having invested so much money in coaching over the years, I've just caught eyes with one of my coaches in the past, hello Julie! We just thought, why don't we just coach each other and save ourselves a packet? And that's exactly what we did. And we are now, I think, 95 sessions deep. I'm looking at you because you're the one that records everything. 95 sessions deep and still going strong. And I'm very proud to be her accountability partner. So, those sessions are where I witnessed the magical beginnings of Focus on Why. And it's the beginning of anything where magic lives. In Amy's book, in the chapter From Beyond the Grave, she cites an excerpt from a conversation with her maternal grandfather and co-author of Focus on Why, George, and it says, I knew what I was going to do all the time. And I can tell you, she did. And I tell you because I've got the evidence. These are notebooks from our 95 sessions that we had together, documenting the beginnings and the emergences of the book. So, just to note, I actually did turn out to be a pretty decent accountability partner, because look, I really did take notes. It's all in there, it was good stuff. So, what I wanted to do this evening was share a few snippets and excerpts from those notes and share some of that magic that I've witnessed firsthand. So, starting with session 1, 28th of January 2021. I wrote in the journal, Amy is frustrated. She recognises she is a thought leader in the purpose space area, has a podcast on purpose. It's called Focus on Why. No products though. Not seen as the go-to expert. Just doesn't see herself that way. Has a weekly blog on meaningful topics around purpose. Has the knowledge, has the drive, has the content, but doesn't want to be in the spotlight. She wants to shine a light on others. But where does it all belong? Where does she fit? We were quite dramatic back then, weren't we, during COVID? But yeah, these were big questions. In response to that, I asked Amy, what object or action best describes you? And then a conversation ensued. And out of that conversation came an unmistakable image. And it was that of a lighthouse. Amy is a lighthouse. A tall, strong, bright beacon that shines a light to help people navigate hazards and find a clear path. That is Amy's magic. And actually, I even drew a lighthouse. Can you see it? Legit. Right, session 2. So, this was the 4th of February 2021. And I write this. In a coaching client testimonial, Amy was described as being a passport, helping them transcend their inner light outwards from within. Amy concludes her role is something around alchemy, which links to her favourite book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, bringing elements together through serendipity to help understand one's purpose from within. Amy also recounts her talent and wealth dynamics profile. Anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's an awesome profiling tool, really great if you're self-employed, by Roger James Hamilton, look it up. And Amy is a star, meaning she creates attraction, motivates and inspires, shines a light on others, is an excellent communicator, and is high energy and fun. And then I write, but she seems so uncomfortable with this concept. She doesn't want to be the star of the show. And I actually wrote, she doesn't want to be the star. She wants to get people started. Do you see what I did there? Absolutely dreadful. I mean, I was really bringing my image, my humour A game back in the day. But yes, Amy is and always will be a star. So I'd also drawn an image of a plunger and a poo on there for some reason. I'm saying Amy is a plunger. I don't think that is actually relevant in the context of this evening, so we'll just skip over that. But what that session showed us is Amy is an alchemist, drawing out people's inner North Star to purposely follow. This too is her magic. Then we got to session number 4, 25th of February 2021. And I wrote this, Amy doesn't want to produce lots of books. She wants to create the book. Something different. Something that has its own USP to write the book that she never found. That introduces possibility, opportunity, using metaphor with a maxim to design a structured guide to creating meaningful change. It must have a splash of humour, with space for the reader to reflect, digest, and adopt action, the path made clear. And look where we are today. Amy is the creator of Focus on Why. This is her magic manifested, and what a special book it is. So in essence, I have had the great honour to witness firsthand the magical emergence of a beautiful lighthouse who, through her unique alchemy, created the book to help you and I find our inner North Star and navigate a purposeful path. And it's Amy's reflections on her own purpose and action to even create Focus on Why that serendipitously brings us together this evening. But how did she create something so unique? Well, by doing what Amy does best, by shining a light on the journey of another. And that journey was that of her grandfather, George. And as he so prophetically wrote in his commonplace scrapbook, a later chronicler must speak of this. So, let me invite that later chronicler to take her rightful place as a star on this stage, our lighthouse, our alchemist, our star, our friend, and now published author, Amy Rowlinson.
Why are we here? Why? Why are we here in this building today?
You're right.
And why are we here on this planet? There are the questions. And I'll come back to that, why are we here on the planet, a little bit later. But why today? Why this building? And literally, why in this room? So, there are no coincidences in my life. There have been a few in this book, but this is not one of them. Why are you here in this room on this day, today? Did you see this when you came upstairs? Did you see this when you walked in? This is awesome. So if you can't read it, there it is bigger. So it says there that this Victory Club was given essentially by Winston Churchill at the time to be a memorial to all those fallen comrades and as a tribute of those who did not return. And it stands guardian of the common treasures and of the memories of friendship and of brave deeds. And I stand here as a guardian of common treasures, memories of friendship and brave deeds. And I'm going to be sharing some of those with you tonight. And I'm going to get emotional because it really is quite an emotional journey that I've been on. But this is really important to me to share this. And this building is representative of many war heroes. But as I'll also explain, heroes don't always show themselves in the way that you might expect them to. They don't always show themselves in the way that you would be etched in stone upstairs. And my book is testament that heroes come in all different ways and perspectives. So that's why we're here in this building, but in this room is a whole different story. This day, literally 82 years ago, today, was day 7 of the Battle of El Alamein, and we are in the El Alamein room. Okay. Now, the grandfather that I wrote this book with was not in El Alamein. However, my paternal grandfather was. And this is Fearless Jim. And his daughter is here today. Julie, I knew this would happen. And my cousin also, we share this fantastic grandfather. And he was eventually a Major General and a lot of letters after his name. And he was at El Alamein 82 years ago, today, all those years ago. And he wrote the foreword for this book. And this book is the diary that one person kept from this tank regiment that Fearless Jim was a commanding officer of. It was the 5th Tank Regiment. And in his foreword, he wrote these words, that no words of mine can adequately express the debt which is owed to such men. And I agree. This building there's so much history here. There is so much that we have to be grateful for. And he said it beautifully. And he was with Monty. Monty is probably one of the most famous names to come out of World War II. They were in El Alamein, and here they are discussing the success of the campaign and discussing what's next, where are we moving forward. So this is a grandfather who's part of my DNA. And that's Jim, okay? But I wrote my book with George. So there are two grandfathers who were in World War II. And one of them was a professional soldier. That was Jim. The other one was a conscript. Okay. One of them spoke with Churchill. This is Churchill here, and this is my grandfather. And the other one spoke of him. Okay. And one of them fought many times, got injured, but always returned to the front line. And the other one did not want to fight at all and was captured very early on and was a prisoner of war. And at this point, on this day, 82 years ago, had already spent 2 years as a prisoner of war. So very different war stories, but both form the DNA of me. And so, yes, Jim is probably the one that would be spoken about and etched in stone, just like upstairs Winston Churchill has spoken about. But George has a different story to share, and his brave deed was to write and keep a journal for 5 years as a prisoner of war. And I've just realised I haven't been using the microphone, but can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So his brave deed was not one to fight from the front, but to explore and share with us how we can find mental liberation and escape our own prison that sometimes we keep ourselves held in. And in this book, it shows how he worked through the captivity, the times of being held captive, difficult times. And that is what I wanted to share with you today. Mostly George's brave deeds. So I said I stand guardian here, and I do. And I think we all stand guardian of these incredible common treasures. They're all to be found in our lives, these memories of friendship and also brave deeds. I wrote this book with my grandfather, and these two books have come together to form the book that you have seen me sign tonight and have spent the best part of the last 2 years writing. It hasn't always been easy. Some people in this room will witness that particular challenge, but also equally it has been an incredible amount of joy. Now, there's something else I found, and this links into the memories of friendship. I remembered that I received a little card, and this is actually a sketch that my mum, my incredible artist mum, who's already crying, well done. Okay, this was done in '96, and that was the year that George died. And my grandma wrote this to me. She said, "For you to keep among your treasures, my darling, my common treasures." And there are two photographs, and these two photographs are the grave and the churchyard where we buried my grandfather. So the reason I share that is because on this day, the 29th of October, 1996, so 28 years ago, today was the anniversary, or is the anniversary of my grandfather's passing, which is why I chose today, why I chose this building, and why you are here. So my grandmother died 2 years ago, and there we are again in the same graveyard. And it's interesting to see in different perspectives. There I was when I was in my early 20s, and then I've now got my children in their 20s in that same graveyard. And it just really brings everything to home about what really matters, what really is important in life. These two photos, and why Ruth, my grandma, sent me that note to keep among my treasures, because yes, they are things to be treasured, these memories of friendship and brave deeds and these awesome common treasures. So that's why this location, that's why you are here today, and that's why you are here. But let's go back to that bigger question, the bigger existential question, the why are you here? Or what is your purpose in life? And why are you on this planet? What is it that you want to achieve? And what is the meaning of life is a question I'm not going to answer tonight. That's a whole different conversation. But this is something that keeps coming back to me. And it's a quote from Desmond Tutu, which is about understanding what the root cause of a problem is. Instead of literally just saving people, it's about going back to find out why they're falling into the river. So that's something that is really important to me. This particular quote is in the book, and it's because you have a choice. Are you in the water waiting to be saved, or are you striding up the bank with purpose and finding out why they're falling in to solve that problem? And this is something that I believe is at the root of having a purpose, of being of service to others, is understanding the difference of how you can bring this incredible way of life into action. And I believe that, yes, change begins with the individual, and change begins when you stand for what you believe. And I will be saying quite a few things tonight that I just want to let sink. And obviously you're going to be reading the book, and these questions and these thoughts are in there. But this is really like what really matters to you. Why are you here on this planet? This is your one and only life. So it is up to you to take action. And what is it you stand for? What is it that you think needs solving in the world? What is it that you really want to change? Change begins with the individual. And then it's about collaboration and finding other people to help you to make that difference. But know that you can make that difference. You really can. Have you ever caught yourself saying somebody really should do something about? It's kind of that pub conversation that you overhear people saying, and they're complaining and they're sitting on the stool and literally just moaning. Instead of somebody, think about who that person could be. Because I think that everybody has something that they think needs changing or improving or whatever that might be. I'm sure you've got some inspiration for change. There are so many people in this room who have been on my podcast who have shared what it is that they're doing and what it is they want to change and how they want to make that difference. There's often a moment when you realise that actually that somebody could be, should be, needs to be you. And there was that moment for me back in 2016. Now, this was not a great year. This is when both John and I realised that we were at differing points of burnout, to the point that actually John came home one night and I didn't even recognise him. He looked awful. And it was at that point that I knew something had to change and I had to really take action. So I resigned from my job and set a plan in motion to build a different way of life for us, for our family, and to create a new way of life. And it really did make a difference for our family. And we had, as I said, we're at different points of burnout. Our declining health was really taking a toll. But we'd been swept up. We'd forgotten about what we wanted to do. We'd forgotten about our dreams, and we've just been swept up with living out other people's expectations and their dreams. And it's easily done. You can get whipped in this frenzy, especially in London. You sort of roll the whole wave of Commuterville and everyone else is doing it. So, I'm no different. Why not? So challenging the status quo and really looking about what is important was something that we both did. And then we recognised that actually we didn't need to live the way that we were living at all. And so we created a new way of life for ourselves. And with that, we created this new way of life. This autopilot got moved out, and it was very much a conscious, intentional, purposeful action that we then took every day. we understood about how we could be of greater service. You'll see both John and I in the community doing lots of things. It's always been part of our way of being, and it's very rewarding. But now it's actually conscious. What is it that we're going to be doing to spend our time, and how are we going to be directing that energy? Because this is our one and only life, and we want to make sure that it really matters. So we don't want to just leave a legacy. We don't want something to be said about us once we're gone. We want to be creating a legacy that we can actually live, and that we can breathe, and we can be a part of. And that is something that we are consciously designing every day. So we stopped filling in the moments, and instead we created these moments which are fulfilling. And there's a really big difference between the two. Trust me, having lived with and without purpose, it's a cavernous difference. And this whole living versus existing. Because yes, you can live or exist without a purpose. But when you have one, it's a beautiful thing. So that's what I wanted to share in terms of it's never too late. I'm a big believer in midlife beginnings. In fact, I've written that in many books tonight, is about being a believer of the magic of midlife beginnings and how they really can come true if that's what you want to achieve. I've got a bit of a theme song going there. So having addressed these personal challenges of our own life, I recognised that I could actually take what I had put into motion and address a bigger challenge, a global challenge. In fact, it was a global existential crisis that I wanted to solve, and I really believed that somebody should really do something about that. And then I realised, well, that somebody has to be me, because I now have the knowledge of how I can shift this. And so that's what I did. I started a podcast, and as Joe said, I shone a light. Because, I don't always like being in the spotlight. I like to shine it on others. And this is something that I started when I first launched the podcast. I thought I'd put a sticker on where people are listening from. And then the stickers just kept on coming. And that's 140 countries now. That's 4 years later and 430 episodes. So it's quite a thing when you look at that. And it does remind me that my actions, my daily actions and my reflections with actions are making a difference to other people. And every Wednesday I put out a podcast. In fact, Kay, yours is out tomorrow. Yeah. So, and if anybody wants to come on my podcast and hasn't yet, please drop me a line. So, many of you may have heard of Simon Sinek. He wrote this book called Start With Why. It's great. But it was 15 years ago. That's quite a long time. And there's been a huge rise of purpose on the business agenda. And I've been doing a lot of work, 4 years now, with my podcast and my blogs, and you'd think that everybody would be fulfilled in life and I would have sorted out all this problem, that this global existential crisis, but sadly not. It's not the case. I have work to do yet, because, would it surprise you? In fact, I'm going to ask, what percentage of the... If you know this, don't answer. I had to get in there quickly. What percentage do you think of the global workforce is unfulfilled? Just shout out a number.
70%.
60. What have we got? Okay, look. I was really staggered when I heard it was 77%. I thought that was like ridiculous. 77% of the global workforce are actively disengaged or not engaged in their work. That's ridiculous. How can so many people be unfulfilled in their work? And this is according to Gallup. So this is data that came out earlier this year. And it was the same last year, because the cost of this low engagement on the economy is insane. In fact, I don't even know how many zeros that is. 8.9 trillion, that's a lot. Too many. It's actually 9% of the global GDP, which is, again, unfathomable. And what is the effect of that on the planet? It's actually really bad. This low productivity, this low fulfillment in people's lives is having a huge effect. And in fact, the global CEO of Gallup said that he believes it's enough to make the difference between success and failure for humanity. So this purpose thing that I keep talking about, it's quite important. And it's why I've written the book. It's why I have a podcast. It's why it sustained me in keeping going, because I really do believe that this is the change that I'm here to effect. This is what I'm here to help people to understand, is the difference between living or not living with purpose. Gallup's solution, you'd think, they said, that's fine, just change the way people are managed. Yeah, okay. Not as easy as that, because the people who are managing are the most stressed. And they've got the worst mental health and well-being as well. Yes, they may be thriving in their job, but they're actually overloaded. So no, I don't think that's the solution. I think there has to be another solution, a sustainable solution, because I'm all about sustainability. And I have one, funnily enough. It's not to start with why either, because we know that 15 years ago, yes, it's great and it really is important to understand what your purpose is in business, but it's to focus on why. Sorry, spoiler alert. I wrote a book on this. So yes, it is about focusing on why. And it's also about understanding how to assign meaning to your everyday tasks, to understand what it is that you're doing so that you can see how that is relevant to the global economy, to everything. And we don't often do that. We often find ourselves just reacting to moments instead of understanding what their significance is. And this is what I talk about. It's about taking responsibility for your own engagement. Because if we do that, if we take responsibility for how we can affect our own selves, we're not delegating it onto anyone else. It's not the managers who are going to take the toll for making sure that we're fulfilled. That's our responsibility. And if we all do that, then we have that shift. But how? How do we do that? How do we assign meaning, and how do we understand how meaningful our every moment is? Well, again, spoiler alert, I've written a book about how. But I also first want to dispel the myth about purpose, because I so often hear this, how do I find my why? Amy, please help me find my why. And I'm going to tell you right now that you're not going to find it. Okay. Your why is not to be found externally. It's something that you create and fill from within. Now that sounds a bit fluffy, and it's not. Okay. It's really, really true, because the difference is this. A lot of people also think that your purpose and your why, they use those terms interchangeably, and they are very different. Your purpose and your why are interconnected, but they're not the same. And I'll explain what they each are. Your purpose is this overarching intention that guides the direction in your life. And your why is the meaningful significance that you assign to that purpose. Now, again, this has taken me several years to work out, so I know that it might not land just as quickly as I would want it to. But the book will help you to understand the difference and to really put that into everyday motion in your work and in your everyday life. So this is a framework that you'll find within the book, and there are 9 steps with 3 sections: your purpose, your plan, and your focus. And each section is broken down into 3 elements. And what I've done is I have spoken about what that particular element of that stage in this framework is about. And then I've taken excerpts from George's story to show you that 80 plus years ago, this is the way that he evolved and worked out exactly this. It was actually quite spooky, serendipitous, I should say, how when I literally took the chunks out and I sat with my mum and we looked at it, we both looked at each other often and go, this is really strange. Like, how is this working so beautifully? Well, it works because this is a great way of life. And so it really does capture this process nicely. And you have to remember, I wrote my book with my grandfather, but he was 21 when he started writing. So this is a 21-year-old's version with a 50-year-old's version as well. But it shows you an evolution, and it shows you imperfection, it shows you vulnerability, it shows you resilience, it shows you a whole process that we go through, and about embracing your imperfections. So this is the framework I've got in the book. And the core element, the core practice I have after my section, then George's section, there's an element of how you can put this into practice, how you can really embody this learning. And that's through reflection with action. And reflection with action is how you combine purpose and why together in your everyday meaningful application. So the why, or the meaning that I'm talking about applying to your everyday tasks, emerges from reflection. So it's about thinking, what just happened to me in that moment? You intuitively assign a meaning to that, and that will then dictate how you feel and then how you respond. But know that in every single moment, you can choose a different meaning. And I share a story in the book about Holly and how she shared a different meaning after her marathon incident. You have to read the book, but it is a case of you can change what each moment means to you. And then the purpose element, that overarching intention that guides your direction in life, comes through the action that you take. So in every moment, you have a choice to assign a meaning to it. And that will then take you through to what then ensues. And this is how fulfillment and success and productivity all links together, because you are becoming more purposeful in your everyday action. So reflection with action is not something that you just do in your own life, in your personal life. This is a business practice. This is about assigning meaning quotient, or MQ, into your world, as well as IQ and EQ. And it's actually essential, because at the core of your business is the purpose. It is the reason why it exists. And it's often forgotten because everybody's going with the start with why, but they're not focusing on why, and they're not bringing everyone together with that in the business. And when it's all brought together, it's a beautiful thing. So my book is a mirror to hold up to yourself, and you can use the framework and you can challenge the status quo about what's going on for you, what is working and what is not, and be honest with what is not. I'll say it again, because this is your one and only life, and it's important. And Jane said in her lovely review, thank you Jane, that it's a lifelong companion. It's something that you will want to dip in again and again, and take you through and navigate through life stages, because that framework is a constant. You will constantly go around it as a circle for a reason, because you'll forget what you can and cannot control. And it goes back to George's brave deed of that mental liberation, letting go of what we can't control to really understand what we can. And when we do that, we live more purposefully, but with this freedom. So the book is here, and it's got combined insights from my guests, my coaching clients, from George, and also my lived experiences. And it really is a collaboration. And I talk about collaboration being a really important part of working, because we're not designed to work alone. We are designed or evolved to work together. And when we do, we can achieve so much more. I spoke right at the beginning about my DNA and the two grandfathers, but purpose has been embedded within my DNA from always. It's there. This book proves that. In fact, there are two elements in this book that I want to share with you. On the September the 30th, 1942, my grandfather wrote this: proposal to right way of life, to meet the need for a planned life, to meet every circumstance of life, every facet of living. This is 82 years ago. And when I first found it, literally it was the first thing I opened, and I was like, are you joking? I talk about have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why all the time. He blooming well got there first, right? he sort of, yeah, okay, it's not original, so no, okay, fair enough. Having a purpose is not original either. That's just in our DNA. But there was another one, and Joe mentioned it earlier, and it's this one. It says, this is written on the 25th of March 1945, and he said, doubtless it too would contribute something to history, but a later chronicler must speak of this. And it was that moment when I'm like, oh, a later chronicler must speak of this. Somebody really should do something about this. Is echoing in my head and thinking, yes, okay, well, no one else is going to read this journal. No one else is going to even see this. So this definitely has to be me. So that was the moment when I knew that I could write it. And no, the start with why was not with Simon Sinek. It certainly wasn't. And my why didn't start then either. It didn't start with George. In fact, this is a conversation that's been going for thousands of years. It's in all of our DNA, this quest for meaning, this quest for understanding what is our purpose, why are we here on this planet, is deep within. This is a create from within, feel it from within. It's within our DNA. And as guardian of these common treasures and memories of friendship and brave deeds, I've just simply amplified the message that my grandfather wrote 80 years ago, that has been a constant question. He was in broadcasting, I'm in podcasting. My grandfather, the other one, Fearless Jim, I spoke to my dad this morning, he created, for the first time, I'm led to believe, a system in the tanks in El Alamein that they could communicate with each other. He could broadcast, and they could all hear what the plans were, which is why it was such a successful campaign. They didn't have that radio technology until he brought it into the tanks. So communication and broadcasting and purpose and being brave and stepping up and being that person who should do something is also within my DNA. But there's been another contributor here. There's been a few nudges from the universe, which is a case of, come on, get this going. And it wasn't just one, it was several. And I'm not going to share all of them, but when I found my grandfather's scrapbook, that was one nudge. When I found a tape recording that I'd recorded with him aged 15, interviewing him about his experiences as a prisoner of war, that was a pretty big nudge. I can't even remember why I recorded it. I have no idea, but I did. And then when I kept going, I found scripts. And then I had a PhD student who read one of my blogs reach out to me from Australia and say, your grandfather is George Fleming Kerr. Yes, he is. And he's one of the significant key figures in Australian television for these years. And I'm studying him as such for my PhD. Would you like all his manuscripts? Yes, please. One of them was about survivor's guilt in World War II. So I then got quite a lot of insight about more of what he was feeling other than just his own words, because he used his playwriting to articulate that and share some personal details that he didn't write anywhere else, because he used the characters to portray them. And again, it's that vulnerability, that imperfection that really is coming to the fore about what's important and being bold enough to share those. And I have been pretty vulnerable in writing this book. I've shared a lot of things in here with the hope that it will inspire other people to understand that it's okay to have things that don't always work out. It's okay that life is challenging and you'll keep having obstacles in your way. But when you have that clear purpose, that keeps you understanding what the way of life is that you want to pursue. My grandfather, I wondered what all these coincidences are about, and he actually wrote this letter to me while I was at university, which was to explain to me that, considering all the different combinations of things, that there were never any such coincidences. So again, my grandfather had the answer to why all of these things were happening to me, for me. But it was synchronicity, really, this combination of serendipity and synchronicity. And synchronicity is a term coined by Carl Jung to help you understand that there are these meaningful significances and coincidences in life that have this interconnectedness. And we are all connected. There is a reason why you're all in this room today. And it's up to you to decide why that is. That's not for me to say. But there's another element of synchronicity that I want to share. So my grandfather wrote this scrapbook in Germany. For 5 years, he was in 4 different prisoner of war camps, and he kept it going. And it is incredible. These words somehow made their way back all the way to the UK, to England. They then very likely went all the way out to Australia, so that he had this as source material to write the plays that he did in Australia and Sydney for 5 years. And then, just a week before last, they found their way back into Germany again. Because Sue, my lovely publisher, took the book all the way to Frankfurt Book Fair. And I wonder what my grandfather would make of the fact that his words that he wrote 80 years ago would finally find their way all the way back into Germany again via the fact that his granddaughter had written a book with him. I don't know whether that's synchronicity, the universe conspiring, or some kind of magic, but all I know is that it happened. And it's incredible to think that when you take responsibility and you take action, this is what happens. This is the kind of magic that can happen. So you are responsible for choosing the moments in your life. You are responsible for creating them, and they do come from within. It's not that you're going to find your why externally. This is the most important thing that I can share, is about trusting that you have everything that you already need. And it's just a case of allowing yourself to believe your dreams and schemes. A line that my grandfather uses in one of his letters home to his father. And it's not just recognizing the nudges from the universe, it's acting upon them. Because I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert, she wrote a brilliant book called Big Magic. And in that, she talks about downloads and about a particular book that she didn't write, but somebody else did. So she had an idea for a book, and she wrote down the idea in detail. And then she didn't act upon it. So the universe took it to someone else, and they did. And it was written by someone else. So yes, I do believe that if you don't act upon that nudge, the universe will find someone else who will. So this is your one and only life. Really act upon what it is that really matters to you. And everyone I've spoken to and invited to be here, I know that there's magic within you. There's so much that you can create, because your potential is limitless. It really is. And it's never too late. It really is never too late and you fill in those dots. That's for you to decide. All I do know is I'm no longer drifting, no longer filling in the moments, for sure. I am creating moments which are fulfilling. I'm also helping others to do the same by shining the light on what is possible when you focus on why. And this proposal to write, I fulfilled that. I don't think he ever wrote it, but I have fulfilled my grandfather's proposal to write a way of life. I have also become that later chronicler, and who must speak of this for sure, because it's worth speaking about. And I am that somebody who should do something about, and it's still work in progress, that global existential crisis that is going on right now. And I hope that in my lifetime we get to a much lower figure than 77% for the sake of the future generations, for our ancestors, well, for the generations to come. And I am focused on being a great ancestor. I really am. In the work that I do, it gives me great pleasure to know that what I'm doing is making a difference. In whatever way. I just know that it is. For individuals, but also for the ripple effects that I will never hear about. The ripple effects that happen because of what happens, for example, in this room, and what you then go on to do as a result of what you thought about is what is important to you, what really matters. And that's somebody that is somebody could do something about, could be you, needs to be you, should be you. That's for you to choose. But yes, that's why we're in this building. And why are you here? Is it to witness these incredible stories that I've shared of you, of Jim and George, in their very different ways of being heroes, in the way that Jim in El Alamein was an incredible hero, which is essentially why we're all in this room today? Or was it also because of my grandfather, who spent his 5 years writing a journal that has created the book that we've written together? Is it to celebrate the launch of this book? No, I don't think it's any of those, although it would be nice to think that. But you're here through the invitation that my book invites you to do, and it really is up to you to make this difference. And there are three elements of confront the past, embrace the present, and shape your future. Because it's your responsibility to shape what is to come, what is possible when you focus on why. So that's the invitation that I open up to you. And a question I have is, how will you stand guardian of your common treasures, your memories of friendship and your brave deeds, or those of others? But it is a responsibility that we can all have from within. I've acted upon my assignment. I understood it well. So, yeah, my final question for you is, what purposeful way of life will you create when you focus on why? There we go.
Bloody good, wasn't it? Thank you, Amy. You're right.
Yes, I am.
Yes, good.
I managed it without tears.
Wow.
It's all good.
I think we'll forgive you if there's tears. That's all right.
No, I know. It's an emotional night, and yeah,
it is.
It means a lot.
Yeah, and I think we can all see that. It's a huge night, and yeah, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for everything you've created that's brought us here this evening.